Welcome to Bulletproof Veteran Podcast. Thank you for your service.
All right, everybody, welcome back to Bulletproof Veteran Podcast. We have a good one for you today. So a while back, we had Judy from Connected Warriors come on the show. Had a blast talking to her. We talked about yoga. We talked about mental health. We talked about just taking care of yourself as a veteran once you get out, dealing with, ailments, chronic pain, PTSD, TBI, all those different things. And we talked about traumatic yoga and how that could be a benefit. We talked about, getting into a career as a yoga instructor and having that as an option for you and getting certified and all this stuff. Judy was great. Well, she reached out to me recently and she said, I have somebody that you should have on your show to talk about the other things that we do here at Connected Warriors. And of course, I'm always game for that. And especially when we get into more the clinical side, because it's great to learn about mental health and what all goes into making sure we are taking care of ourselves. So today on the show, we have Thais Harris. She is a licensed clinical social worker. She's also the clinical director at Connected Warriors. So we're going to be talking more, like I said, on the clinical side of things, the behavioral health side of things for Connected Warriors and what they have to offer. So Ty, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Jason.
All right, excellent. What we usually do to start off is we learn a little bit about the person that we're having on the show. And in your case, I'm sure it started with a lot of schooling, but please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, so I'm, like you said, the clinical director here at Connected Warriors. I'm an LCSW. When I was offered this position, it's actually a position I had gotten hired for before COVID, and then we had to slow things down. We weren't able to open. So when I was offered the job again a year later, I was like, of course I want to work with veterans. I have a passion for working with veterans. I did live at Fort Bragg for several years with my husband and worked in the schools and worked as a social worker. So it's always been a population that I've liked to work with as a social worker. So when I was offered this position, I was just so thrilled and so blessed.
Yeah. And listen, veterans have a lot of challenges when working with them. I can imagine what it's like working at some of the schools on these installations. I know when I was stationed in Aviano, they had a school right on base. And I could imagine what it's like, walking a fine line between dealing with the military population and also their kids. That must have been a difficult job.
It was challenging, but it was so rewarding. I always liked working with kids, and I was always the mom on the base that had all the kids over at their house.
Very cool.
I was like the neighborhood babysitter.
That's
so,
great.
Yeah.
Your educational background, where did you go to school?
Well, I graduated from FAU. I have my bachelor's in psychology and my master's in social work. And then from there, I worked, another 2 years additional to get my licensure. So yeah. That's
that license takes a little bit of time.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to. So for the license as a social worker, is that similar to mental health counseling, where you have to be under a licensed person practicing for a certain amount of hours or whatever the case may be?
Yes. So in my case, I did my bachelor's, and I went to school later on in my life to get my master's because I had a family. It took me 4 years because I went part-time, and then I had to do another 2 years of licensure under, like you said, a supervisional person. And that in itself is, then you have to take a test. So it's similar to mental health. It's just social workers, and we have a lot more flexibility in what we can do.
Okay.
We can work in hospitals, we can do therapy. So it's really a good profession.
Yeah, very. I mean, I know a lot of people that have wanted to go that route. It's not an easy profession, but I would assume it's a very rewarding one.
It is very rewarding.
Very cool. So we get into you getting hired on with Connected Warriors. Now, you're part of what I would assume would be that behavioral health program. Can you tell me a little bit about what that is as far as an arm of Connected Warrior? Because when I think of Connected Warrior, I see the Instagram page, all of that. It's mostly yoga.
Yes. Yeah.
So,
So that is how it started with the trauma conscious yoga, which is such a wonderful modality for treating PTSD. However, through time, they said, well, hey, why don't we open our own behavioral treatment center? So we're funded by the Mission Act. And all of our services provided here at the behavioral side is like individual therapy, group therapy. We also have case management services, which is very helpful to help veterans with the transition between when they leave the service and trying to find a job,
mhm.
trying to find housing, trying to find all those, service connected. We have a resource center for them to come to if they need a computer or a printer, because not everybody has that at their house. We also have a lounge for them to just, if they need to have a break and come and just, chill on the sofa and watch some TV, socialize with other veterans, which that's very important too. And we also have food here for them if they're in need of that. So we try to make it as friendly as possible. However, we do have that therapy component. Obviously, we offer those services. We also offer once a week trauma focused yoga here at the center because I still wanted to keep that as part of the program because I do think it's very helpful.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, the way Judy talks about it, the things that you can get out of it, it is
Mm-hmm.
amazing. So I'm glad you kind of kept that as part of it because when we
Of
talk
course.
about behavioral health and we talk about mental health, it's so important that we're not just saying, hey, you're going to go to therapy. We're going to give you these drugs and we'll see
Right.
you in a week. You know,
Yeah.
so many of these organizations, and yours included, you're doing the
Mm-hmm.
right thing by saying, hey, we have all these things out there that can help you. We have
Mm-hmm.
yoga, we have equine therapy, we have martial arts, whatever the case may be,
Right.
and we want all of that to be part of this whole process of making sure that your mental health is being taken care of.
Of course. Yeah. Because it's everything. It's addressing all the parts of a person's life.
Yeah, yeah. So what are some of the I don't want to say conditions because I hate putting a
A
label on
label.
it, but what are some of the reasons somebody would come to Connected Warriors? There we go. That sounds better in my head.
Well, a lot from my experience as a therapist, PTSD is one of the main things. Post-traumatic stress disorder, traumatic brain injury, trauma, sexual trauma that could have occurred during their time in the military. Um, and sometimes those feelings, those suicidal thoughts, the reckless behavior, the substance abuse to numb their feelings, you know, just flashbacks in general that can occur. Sometimes that doesn't happen right away. It can often come a year later,
Hmm.
and all of a sudden this person's experiencing, this just really bad place in their head, and they just can't get out of it and don't know what's happening. Sometimes they would expect that to happen right after the event, but sometimes it doesn't happen. It has a later onset. So we treat, mostly those types, like that's what we see a lot,
Hmm.
PTSD, TBI, depression, anxiety, and also just learning how to live outside of being in the service. Because, a lot of times when a person is used to a lot of structure and then all of a sudden they don't have that structure anymore, idle hands are a devil's workshop. I mean, sometimes we don't know, we just all of a sudden don't have that and we don't have any type of like guide. So I would hope that this place could be some place that they would come where they would get that support of, finding their way in the community, getting a job. I have so many contacts and people that want to help and people that want to give, jobs to veterans. And so I just want them to know that this place is here for them. And if they don't have insurance, it's okay. They can still have services. We do work through the Mission Act, is through Optum insurance. However, if they don't have that, they can still come.
Okay,
We
that's
still
good.
offer
That's good
service.
to know. I hate to see somebody not go to get health,
Right.
behavior health help or mental health counseling because of health insurance. That breaks my heart when I hear something like that.
Yeah. We have a lot of donors. We're a non-for-profit.
Hmm.
So we do have that option, which is nice.
Yeah. And you talk about symptoms coming up years later, a year later, years later, whatever it is. And that's kind of something that I wanted to talk to you about was, say, I'm the veteran, or I'm a family member of a veteran, or a friend. I see one of my friends from the service. What are some of the things that should be, I don't know, signs to me that there might be something more going on with this person, or even myself? Because, like you said, they were fine for a year after they got out of the service. Everything was fine. Why all of a sudden are now they having these problems? And we might want to help that person. What should we be looking for, especially when we talk about PTSD, TBI, and TBI? Let's be honest, gets misdiagnosed all the time.
Right.
It's horrible that it does, but it does. And depression and all of these other things. What can I be looking out for? Early onset symptoms.
Okay. Well, in a lot of times, people that isolate, social isolation is a big thing. You don't want to be around, don't enjoy doing things that they used to. And a lot of times what happens is they'll have flashbacks. Something will trigger something in their head, and they'll be back in that situation where they feel like they're re-experiencing the event all over again. It can destroy family relationships, relationships with loved ones, because loved ones, like you said, want to help, but they don't know how. So getting back to your question, just sitting down and having that talk with them. Like, I understand, like, if you have had the same experience, I understand, what you're going through, and, it's not, there's no stigma against getting help. Because I do know that is something that is in the military. You're viewed as being weak if you reach out for help. So that's kind of something that we're trying to combat. But I do know that is a reality. That's why I think with the yoga, it's less intimidating. It's easier to come in for a yoga class than it is to sit down for a therapy session.
It gets them in the door.
So, exactly. So that's why, we want to incorporate that. But I would just really say, just keeping that communication open. Making sure that they can, having the numbers that, our number or the crisis line, that they can reach out to and call if they're feeling suicidal.
Yeah. And that's something we talk about a lot on the show, is that crisis line. I try to give that number out quite often, because it's something that you need to have with you for yourself, and also for a friend or a family member, that you can provide that, and they can get that help at that darkest hour, that they're not by themselves.
Exactly. And unfortunately, veterans don't usually get help until they've hit rock bottom. And we usually saw, but through my experience as a therapist, I worked many years in substance abuse. And that's usually when we see them getting help, is when they've, been self-medicating, and then they end up in a treatment center. So unfortunately, it has to come to that. And we would like them to get help before that happens. Before they hit rock bottom and they lose everything.
Yeah.
If that's the case. I know that's not the case with everyone, but basically, just being aware that, those mood swings, the suicidal ideations, the social isolation, nightmares, flashbacks, just re-experiencing the event, all those things present as PTSD. And traumatic brain injury, just the physical aspect of confusion, headaches, agitation. Yeah.
Yeah. I know agitation was a big one. That was one of the big things with the NFL, that why they got so involved in it, in TBI, and CTE and all these other things that you're starting to hear. Now, all of a sudden, everybody knows CTE. It becomes a meme. It becomes a joke. 15 years ago, nobody even knew what CTE was, from a layperson perspective. I certainly didn't. TBI is the same thing. Now, all of a sudden, you're hearing all about TBI. And I think 10, 15 years ago, the average person walking down the street, if you would have said TBI, they would think you had a new Volkswagen. They wouldn't have any idea what the hell you just said. But yeah, so, it's important that we continue to educate and let people know that these things are out there, and you have to be an advocate for your own health. If you're having headaches, if you're having confusion and agitation and forgetfulness, all these different things. This might be something else going on that you
Mhm.
need to look into.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And there are,
And
I know sometimes it seems overwhelming, especially when
Mhm.
you're not in a good place mentally. It's challenging to even get the strength to reach out for help. It's easy to just say, "Oh, I got it. I got this. Like, it's okay. I got this. I got this."
Mhm.
And sometimes, it just there are people out there that care and that want to help, and you won't be judged for it.
Yeah. And I would imagine, and please stop me if I'm wrong,
Mhm.
I would imagine that probably most of the people with TBI that are veterans, probably there's a good chance that they struggle with PTSD because what was the event that led to the TBI? You know what I
Yes.
mean?
Mhm.
Outside of maybe just, your normal job, because there are a lot of jobs with concussive forces and things like that. But if you were part of an IED explosion that caused your TBI, there's probably a good chance that you might be at risk for PTSD because of that situation.
Exactly.
So these things just
Yes.
compound one on one.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
they go hand in hand
it's
for
really tough.
sure.
Very tough.
Yeah. So you have
Um,
you have the actual physical component, and
mhm,
then you also have a mental component with it as well.
yeah.
Mhm.
And going back a little bit to what you were talking about as far as not wanting to say something, not wanting to come in, it's so difficult. And you were on Fort Bragg, so you I'm sure you have an understanding of this, is that we're told the entire time we're in the military, don't go get help because you'll get in trouble.
Yeah.
That's alcohol, that's mental health, that's even physical ailments. Don't go get your knee checked out because you get put on a profile, you won't be able to deploy, they'll kick you out.
Right.
Don't say that you are struggling with alcohol a little bit because then they're going to put you in a program, they're going to kick you out.
Yeah.
you know so that that culture continues after we get out because we're told time and time again, you're going to get in trouble if you go do this. Now I know they're trying to change that, I've heard that before, but for the people that have already been through, it can be really hard to reverse that brain and now go to somebody and say, hey, I'm having trouble.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
It's just really, I've always said to my clients, you can look through the, search online, and you can find, all the symptoms and be like, oh, I have this and I have this and I'm experiencing this. And I really think it comes down to, how much are these symptoms affecting my quality of life, my daily life, my relationships. And then that really just comes to a personal, excuse me,
Oh,
sorry,
please go ahead.
a personal choice, a personal choice for what it is that, just self-care in general, which is something I think is becoming more accepted in today's society, actually being able to say, I need to take care of myself. And that's not being selfish,
Hmm.
because I know the military, you're sacrificing a lot, you're self-sacrificing. But, there has to be that line just that you need to draw for yourself and be like, listen, I don't want to lose everything, and I don't want to die. And, you know, just making that decision for yourself. And that's part of the journey of, growing as a person
Hmm.
too.
So as we grow and as we try to help ourselves, what can somebody kind of expect to experience when they first walk in your door? So they're coming. The name of the physical location is the Leading Edge Outpatient Behavioral Health Center. And that's in Boca Raton, in Florida.
Yes.
So I walk in the door. I'm in Florida. I'm a local veteran. Never heard of you guys. Somebody told me about it. I'm walking in the door. What can I expect as a first time? We'll say patient.
Okay. Okay. So basically, what we would do is, well, first of all of our therapists here are veterans.
Oh, okay.
So we do have that component. You would come in for an assessment, basically just sit down and, talk to us a little bit about what's going on one.
Hmm.
And then from there, kind of find out what it is that you would like to work on. I like to incorporate the yoga with the therapy because I think that that's helpful. Plus, it's in a group setting, so you start to meet people. But basically, yeah, it would just be trying to, sitting down, finding out what's going on, and then going from there. I know there with the VA, it's you have to have a referral. However, if you're to come in here, you don't have to have a referral the first time you come. After you sit down with us and we talk, we can put the referral in for you, so you don't have to do the work. We can request services from the VA because we're a community care provider. Because I know a lot of that's in itself a beast, trying to get to the VA and do all the paperwork and referral. So they can come in, and then we can do that for them, request the referral, or else they can get a referral from the VA themselves and then come here.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm
No,
sorry.
that's all right. No worries. Listen, phones ring. This is life here.
But yeah, it's very stress-free, and we're very welcoming. They come in, they can have something to eat. They can just, sit down and for a while if they just need a place to chill. It's very open, very friendly. It's not like the typical therapist office that you'll walk into or the VA.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, it doesn't have that cold feeling. It seems like it's a warm environment where you can walk
Exactly.
in and you might even talk to somebody just sitting in the waiting room, or like you said, grabbing a bite to eat, or, hey, I don't really feel like talking to somebody right now. I'd just like to do the yoga class. And then you meet a couple people, and maybe somebody who's been there a bunch of times says, hey, these are good people. You can talk to them.
Yes. That's our approach. Like, we're not trying to make you feel uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, if they don't want to do therapy, that's okay. Maybe they'll take some yoga. Maybe with some time, things will start coming up for them, and they'll be like, hey, maybe I want to work on that.
Right.
It depends on the individual.
And then you guys have the ability to refer this person for different therapy, whether it's therapy, addiction counseling. We talked about, equine therapy. We've talked about yoga. Is there anything else that you guys kind of do to kind of help the veteran and maybe personalize the treatment, not just therapy?
Right, because of course, and that's when the case management services come in.
Okay.
We do have a lot of nonprofit companies that we work with to help them find jobs, receive training for any type of career that they would like. They can use their GI Bill. There's a lot of agencies out there that really want to help, like you said, with equine therapy, mindfulness, meditation. There's so many different modalities. But like I've always said, the key to getting ahead is taking the first step. And sometimes that first step is just really hard. But once you take it, it can, have a lot of good outcomes for you.
Yeah. That first step is always, it is the hardest. And that's why I enjoy having people like you on, because I feel like the more we talk about it and the more we take away the unknown of that first step, so that now you know what to expect. You're going to walk in and maybe you don't even have to talk to anybody, because maybe that's your comfort level. You just want to, you've been putting it off. Maybe just getting through the door and having a sandwich is your first step.
Exactly.
So,
exactly.
That's great. Now, do you offer any type of virtual services now? I know with COVID and, you guys waited to open up the in-person actual brick and mortar building. But so say for me, I'm not in Florida, but I really like what you guys are saying. Can I call? Would you refer me to somebody in New York, say? How would that work if I'm, listening and I'm not in the Florida area?
Okay. Well, most of our sessions, we are in person.
Mm-hmm.
I do think when you're dealing with trauma, a lot of times it's like opening Pandora's box, and it's always good to have as much support as you can have when you're working through those types of emotions and feelings.
Mm-hmm.
So I prefer, as just a therapist myself, to do those things in person where there's a lot of support, and we can, make sure that they have the coping skills to help them through those feelings.
Of course.
We're not opposed to virtual. However, we advocate for in person.
Right.
Of course, if there was someone that, I needed to refer them, that's not a problem. Like, we can refer them to someone in the community that, that offers the virtual, if that's exactly what they want.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But we're not opposed to it, but it's kind of like we really want them to come in, but we're not opposed to virtual.
Right. Yeah. And it seems like it would work especially with everything that you're trying to do to actually have the person in the building, because you're creating this entire environment that leads into helping the person. So if you're still in your basement and you're not
Right.
getting out, are you getting all of the benefits of what you guys are offering?
Mhm.
You know, so
Right.
I could see
And
that.
that's addressing the social component as well, which is
Yeah.
so important.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people, they just isolate when, you're feeling depressed, you isolate. I mean, I think we've all been through that at some point in our lives.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you see it
Yeah.
with COVID. I mean, but
Mhm.
I looked at my parents. They didn't leave the house. I mean, they were older and they had some medical, things that they were worried about. They didn't leave the house from, I think, March of 2020 till, man, it might have been July.
Oh,
And
wow.
they were social people. I was doing their grocery shopping for them, but that takes a toll. Not to mention two
Mhm.
people in their late lives living in a house and not leaving. I'm surprised they didn't just, beat the hell out of each other. You've been married 50 years. That's a lot to do now.
Right, right.
But no, COVID has definitely made things 10 times worse for getting people the help that they need. So many services were shut down. So many groups were shut down that were active.
Mhm.
Veterans that were on that borderline of isolating themselves, it was real easy to isolate themselves. Okay, now I'm just going to stay home.
Mhm.
And I think when the numbers come out of the effect of COVID, I think it's going to be very heart-wrenching numbers when we see the effect over time of what COVID did just outside the people that we lost to the disease.
Oh, of course, of course. And during COVID, I actually did online therapy at that time,
Mm-hmm.
and I had over 50 clients. I
Wow.
had, it was just because, when you're sitting around in your house all day, all of a sudden you get hit with, remembering maybe something's bothering you, or you're starting to feel depressed, you're starting to feel anxious. And a lot of people, use work as a coping skill, and when you don't have your work, then what? Then your mind starts, your racing thoughts, your mind starts like, what am I doing? And what's my purpose? And yeah, so many people, had suicidal thoughts during that time.
Yeah.
Um, Adults and children.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It was very difficult, very difficult. So I
Well,
totally agree with you.
yeah. Well, like you
Yeah.
said, work is your break sometimes. Any parent out there,
Mhm.
work is your break. you,
Yeah.
you get you get to leave the house. Your kid goes to
Right.
school, whatever the case may be. You get to go out and be amongst adults for a little bit. You're not watching, the Big Red Dog or Paw Patrol for 5 minutes. So, with COVID, we didn't have that. You were stuck.
Yeah.
Kids were home from school. People were teleworking. They had no escape, and that
Hmm.
could, definitely. It makes it very difficult on marriages, relationships with the children, making sure that they're getting what they need, all of that.
Hmm.
For people that
Oh,
had
definitely.
older kids, I don't even know how you did it. I was lucky. 2-year-old wasn't as bad. She won't even remember it. But for
Right.
people that were 15 and 16 years old, and they were, they're coming into their own and they're creating their own identities, and they're stuck in the house all day. I
Yeah.
can't see that as a good
It's
thing.
yeah, very difficult.
Yeah. So getting back to Connected Warriors. So we talked about some of the in-person services and all of that. Are you guys doing any type of in-person events outside of the yoga? I know you do the yoga classes. Are there any other type of social events that you're trying to do, like you said, to get people in the door, to make people feel comfortable?
Yes, well, we had a table at the Devil Dog Run at South County. We did that. We met, trying to get our name out, because so many people do associate Connected Warriors with just yoga,
Mm-hmm.
which is great. But, we're trying to get the word out that we do offer other services as well. Um, we do have our grand opening coming on November 11th at 4:30 to 6:30. We're going to have a ribbon cutting ceremony, and just to let the community know that we're open. So that is our next big upcoming event.
Oh, that's
And of
awesome.
course, we're open to volunteering or having tables at certain events to promote this treatment center.
Very cool. Very cool. And you said you were working with other organizations to offer different, services.
Mhm.
If those organizations, if say I'm an organization, I'm down in Florida, um, are you still trying to make relationships and stuff like that? I know you're so new that is there a way that the nonprofits and veteran service organizations can reach out to you to help out?
Oh, sure. Well, through our website,
Hmm.
connectedwarriors.org, and my contact is there with my email and our number. So they could definitely, reach out to us through that. And really, Judy has introduced me to a lot of her contacts in the community. So I've been, getting linked with them. And there's just so many organizations out there, that want to help. It's just finding the way to get to them. And that's where I think we come in as for the community with our case management, hey, you need a job, or you're looking for housing, or you're looking for, you know, even food.
Right.
There's so many organizations out there that are willing to help. And it can seem overwhelming when you're not in a good mental state to find and reach out for those things. And that's when you need help. And, there are people, us, and other people that want to help.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Mhm.
Um, as far as if I did come in and I've decided to actually sit down with a therapist. Now I'm sure this is a case by case basis, but just
Mhm.
again, so that we can kind of take down the wall a little bit of what happens when you are in a therapy session for anybody who's not been in a therapy session.
Mhm.
I, what can somebody expect in a normal therapy session, and how often can somebody expect to be coming in for those sessions? So, and again, I know that it would be, very much on a case by case basis, but is there kind of like an average?
Well, for myself and my own experience, when you start therapy, it's usually on a weekly basis.
Okay.
Sometimes, twice a week if needed.
Hmm.
And then as you progress through your therapy and your treatment plan that you make with your therapist, then you slowly wean, maybe once every other week or once a month. Because obviously we don't, we want to give people the coping skills that they need to help them live the best life that they can.
Right. Right. Right.
Yeah.
And yeah,
I
that
feel
it's those coping skills.
Yeah, and as far as like a therapy session, I mean, it really depends on the therapist. I mean, there's their style,
Hmm.
what they use. A lot of cognitive behavioral therapy is used, to try and reframe those negative thoughts that come up in all of our heads, But if you're depressed, you're going to have a lot of negative thoughts.
Hmm.
Um, and then a lot of trauma work that can be done. It really depends on what the therapist comes up with that will help the client the most. So there's
Right.
really no cookie cutter typical therapy session, but I do know for me, I know what to look for when I hire therapists. I'm going to hire a therapist that is going to be compassionate, that has, that can relate because they have been in the service themselves.
Okay.
So through my experience as a therapist, I've learned what type of therapist I would hire. So I think that's really important too. So I don't think there's any fear of being judged, at all here. I mean, we're definitely, warm, inviting center, and we want people to feel comfortable.
Yeah, definitely. Well, and
Mhm.
that's the thing. Like in my head, because I watched too many sitcoms when I was younger. You have that idea of the leather couch, and you're going to sit for your half hour with the clock, and then when the buzzer goes off, okay, you got to get out. That's not
Right.
reality. That's me watching too many shows. But I'm sure I'm not the only person that has that kind of notion that that's what my therapy session is going to look like. Um, and I'm sure there's bad experiences out there where it was kind of like that. Unfortunately,
Yeah.
there's always bad experiences in everything.
Yeah. And even then, like, and that's with like learning to know what's best for you. I mean, say you come in and you start working with a therapist and you feel like it's just not a good fit.
Hmm.
You can always change therapists. We're not going to hurt our feelings, or because there has to be a connection between the client and the therapist. Well, it doesn't have to be, but it's most beneficial for the client if there's that connection where they feel that they're not being judged, and they can just talk freely.
Right.
So it's not a one size fits all approach. So if they were to come in here and, I'm just not really liking this therapist, like, we can always they can always go with a different therapist. It's not the end of the world.
Very cool. Very cool. Now, talking about your therapists, you said that all your therapists are currently veterans themselves.
Yes.
That's awesome. I mean, just for a comfort standpoint.
Yeah.
Do you have a good mix of the services, or are they kind of focused on one: Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, or did you kind of you sprinkle a little bit in from everybody?
Well, we have a mix.
Okay.
We have Army, Navy, Air Force. I don't have a Marine yet.
Okay.
Yet.
Yet.
It's really it's hard to find. It's hard to find a mental health provider that has experience in the military. It's not that easy to find. So it's been a rigorous process for me as a clinical director to find these people.
Yeah.
And I'm so blessed to have found them. Like, I treasure them as my colleagues, and have the utmost respect for them. And yeah, but we have a mix.
And how many therapists do you currently have there?
Right now we have 5.
5. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that goes back to if you're not, if the relationship with one isn't exactly what the client is looking for, there's an option to go. It's not like, hey, we only have 2 and this is that, the best we can do. You have some options, which is great.
Yeah. And I think I don't know if I mentioned this earlier, sorry. But we do have group therapy. So we have group therapy. We have some classes, excuse me, in the mornings. And then we're trying to offer them in the evenings now for like people that work and can't come in the mornings. But basically, group therapy is also something that's very social. You don't feel like you're being singled out. You have that group camaraderie where, you're able to talk about your feelings in a group session and realize that there's people that, are feeling the same things that you are feeling, and that you're not alone and that you're not crazy. And, these are just consequences of what you've been through, and they can be fixed. It's not a life sentence to always feel depressed or always feel anxious or always looking over your shoulder. Like, there's a lot of people that experience that, and there's help to help you get through that and move past it so you can live your best life.
And that group setting, I'm sure, gives a good window into that, because you probably have people at different levels of care, in at different stages in their process. And then I'm assuming that you have a social worker that or somebody that runs the meeting, that moderates.
Oh yeah, well, our therapists run it.
Okay, it is a therapist that runs it. Okay,
yeah,
excellent. Yeah,
and groups on like anger management or life skills, things like that. Learning how to meditate, could be just simple as that. Like, it's just basic things.
And that is a lot harder than you think. Quieting your mind is not an easy task. Anybody who just thinks that they're going to go and just start meditating without any instruction or help, got another thing coming to you.
I know, right? It's not easy. It's challenging for me as well.
Yeah. My mind never quiets, so it's like you sitting there is like almost painful in the beginning.
Oh.
But I do the best I can.
Yeah. Well, that's all we can do.
That's all you can do. And it's great that you have things like that, because again, in a group setting, I might go in there as a new person, and I'm like, I can't do this because like every time I sit down, I can't stop my brain from, well, now there's somebody who's not, a teacher or, a professional in meditation or yoga or something like that, saying, no, I was at the same place as you. It took me 3-4 months. It took me a while, and I did these things, and now I'm able to get the benefits from it.
Yes.
So that's important. Definitely important.
Yeah, definitely.
So as far as getting in contact with the center, you talked about the website. What is the website to go on for, if we wanted to get a little bit more information about the behavioral center?
Oh, sure. It's connectedwarriors.org.
Okay, excellent. And there is a tab, I believe, up at the top. There's a tab for the Behavioral Health Center, and you can click that, and you can see the services, and you can also meet a little bit of the team, that type of stuff. Yes,
there is. We're actually working on revamping the website a little bit more to gear it more towards the behavioral health side.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of times people just go on the website and they just see the yoga, and which is great,
Yeah.
But we kind of want it to pop out a little bit more so they don't have to go looking for it. But right now, I do believe it shows mostly yoga, and then on the top corner, there's like behavioral health, so you can definitely click that. But I think within the next couple of weeks, we're going to have it up and running where it shows a little bit more, access to the behavioral health side.
Yeah, that would be great. And then this way people can, like you said, the easier we make everything, the more people are going to do it.
Exactly.
That's the key. If something's difficult to navigate, people move on to the next thing. It's
I
the
hear
way we
you.
are. But, well, I'll tell you what, Ty, I've had a great time talking to you. There's been a lot of information. I think, everybody has a lot to digest with it. But I want to give you an opportunity, any last minute closing comments, anything that you'd like people to know about, please let us know.
Oh, yeah, sure. I mean, well, first of all, I'm just so thankful that you have me on your program. I really appreciate it. It's been slow getting the word out that we're open.
Mm-hmm.
And we're located in Boca Raton, Florida, right off of Power Line in between Palmetto and Glaze Road. So we have a really beautiful facility here. And we just really want people to get the help that they need if they're struggling. Like I said, we're a non-for-profit. We're not trying to make money. We're just trying to help people. And if you don't have insurance, it's okay. You can still come in and get the services that you need. And if you're just wondering, should I get help? Should I not get help? Is this gonna be used against me? You know, Everything here is confidential. What's said between you and your therapist. You're covered by HIPAA. There are things in place that can protect you, so it's not like it's going to be announced that you're in therapy. It's going to be out on a billboard or something. Like it is private. It is individual, and you do have laws that are here to protect your your privacy, your confidentiality. So if that kind of scares you from coming in, and like I said, even if you want to come in and you don't want to do the therapy and you just want to take a yoga class, just come in for the yoga class. It's free. We have a class right now on Wednesdays at 2 p.m. And if we have a need for more, we'll obviously add more into our schedule. But anytime we're open from 9 to 5, if you're in the neighborhood and you want to come in for a bite, or you even want to come to our grand opening on November 11th to check us out, that would be great. You're always welcome. So we're just trying to have a different approach to how we treat veterans, so they don't feel like they're overwhelmed having to go to the VA and having to get a referral for this and a referral for that. And, that in itself can be so frustrating.
Yes, it can.
And I also, I have so many contacts, with United Way and to find housing. And I'm working with a veteran right now who's homeless, because I know that is a big problem. So it's just I want for us to be like a beacon, like a center point. And then from there, we can get them connected to whatever that they need, because we have excellent people working here that really have in their heart a love to help veterans.
That's awesome. That's awesome. If you are a veteran in the Florida area there near Boca Raton, or even within driving distance of Boca Raton, please check this out. It's, again, a one-stop place where you can find comfort, and that comfort can come in so many different ways, whether it is therapy, whether it's yoga, whether it's just help finding a house, or, grabbing a bite to eat. You can pop in. It's a welcoming environment. So why not take advantage of it? We love seeing this type of stuff, and we want to see it in more communities, and you guys can be a model for what we see other places.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's definitely our goal.
It's great. And I appreciate what you're doing, Ty. Again, helping the veteran community is important, and we want to make sure everybody gets what they need. So we need people like you, like Judy, who are stepping up saying, hey, we're going to open up our doors and we're going to take care of people. Doesn't matter if you can pay. Doesn't matter if, there's insurance issues. We'll work through all of that. We'll figure it out.
Exactly.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show, Ty. I had a blast talking to you again. Check out Connected Warriors, the Behavioral Health Center. November 11th is the grand opening ribbon cutting. Please head on down there if you're in that local area. Check them out. All right. Reach out through the website. You can get more information. Like I said, pop in for a yoga class. That's where it all starts. So, and then you can take advantage of everything.
Okay. Thanks, Jason. I appreciate it.
Hey, thank you very much.